Okay, we are live. I apologize. I am late. I'm running late today. It's just one of those days. So anyways, we today are going to make ribs. It's not the best day outside for ribs. It's raining. But I'm probably just going to put them in the oven versus grilling them. I know ribs are like a huge deal to some people, and they feel like they are, um, it has to be very precise. It has to be almost like a science. I don't take that approach on ribs. I think ribs are easy, and as long as you can get them to be tender and have some flavor on them, you're doing a good job. So I'm going to be using pork back ribs, baby back ribs. I have them right now. Let me get them out. Right now they're in the oven, just kind of pre-baking. So here they are. I have to cut them in half, but first, we'll be making two different kinds of barbecue sauces. The first sauce that we're going to make is going to be like a Coca-Cola kind of barbecue sauce. The second kind of barbecue sauce that we're going to be making is a mango chipotle barbecue sauce. It's very, very, very good. So we'll make the sauces first, and then I will go into the difference between baby back ribs and spare ribs and where both of those come from. So, excuse me. So for the cola ribs, you can actually marinate the ribs overnight in some Coca-Cola, or I guess if you're a Pepsi drinker, Pepsi would work too. And then marinate them overnight, but I didn't do that. So we're going to take a half a cup of Coke. This is a cup measuring, but I'm just going to use half. And actually, I'm going to put it in this little pan right here. Let me see if you guys can see. Move this back a little. Nope, you can't see the little pan, but there we go. There we go. All right, so we'll put that in there. Then we're going to add a cup of ketchup. Okay, cup of ketchup. We're going to add a cup of brown sugar. I'm using dark brown sugar. And you don't have to worry about if it's super clumpy because it'll cook down. Just a tad more because there's a bunch stuck in the bottom of this cup here. Then we're going to add 2 tablespoons of chili powder to this. And we'll put this, you just want to start it on a low. There's 1 and 2. We're going to also add some pepper to this. Lots of pepper. You guys know I like black pepper. There's a couple different barbecue sauces or mop sauces or whatever you want to call them I've made before. This one is really, really good for ribs, and it turns out really nicely. I think all that sugar in there kind of allows it to caramelize, and you get a really good flavor on there. So dry mustard, we're going to add a tablespoon of that. And then we're going to add a half a tablespoon of garlic powder. You could certainly add whole garlic to this if you wanted, but you probably would want to puree it or something in a blender once you get done. That way you don't have chunks there. And then we're just going to kind of give this a little whisk or stir all together. And I have written down here the last time that I made this, it was kind of a mixture of two recipes. I have written down here a half to a cup of Coke. This is actually fairly thick, so I think I'm going to go ahead and add that extra half cup. Okay. Yeah, that's better. I'll let you guys. And we're just going to let this kind of simmer all together for about 20 minutes or so. And then we'll put it on our ribs, and it'll be kind of the finishing sauce for our ribs before they go in the oven and come up. Right now they've been at 275. You can also boil them. I know there's controversy on that. I'll talk about that a little later once I get into, I have a little PowerPoint that I want to show you guys where the ribs come from. So for the mango salsa, or not salsa, that was last week, barbecue sauce. I still had some mangoes left over, so if you tuned in last week, I made shrimp quesadillas with a mango salsa. So I still had some mango salsa, or mangoes left over from my salsa, and so I figured I'd make this barbecue sauce because it is seriously delicious. It's one of my favorites. I found it from Iowa Girl Cooks or Eats, and I will be sharing the recipe for this on Tuesday, which we're back to normally scheduled programming on my blog, which is prairiecalifornian.com. So we're going to take, we'll put this on low as well. We're going to take one mango that we've chopped up here, dump it in, and then we're going to take a chipotle pepper and adobo sauce. If you have never seen these or found these, or you don't know what they are, I would highly recommend finding them. They are kind of a smoky, spicy chipotle pepper, and they have this really nice adobo sauce, and I love this stuff. It's so, so, so good. I've added these things to like a corn chowder, and they kind of give a spicy, smoky taste to it. I've made pork roast, like pulled pork, where you dump this in, the Pioneer Woman does it, dump this in with Dr. Pepper, and that sweetness of the Dr. Pepper plus these peppers adds spice and kind of smokiness. So if you, next time you're at the grocery store, look for these. Usually they're in like the ethnic foods section. They're pretty easy to find. And I'm just going to put this in there as like a whole piece. It calls for one, but I'm going to put two. And then it also wants 2 teaspoons of the sauce out of here. All right. Then we're going to put a half cup of ketchup in here. Back to our ketchup. And this one you can leave as a whole chunks. These mangoes aren't the best chopped up. I didn't spend the time to chop them really finely because I will actually be taking an immersion blender in here and kind of blending this all up so it's nice and smooth. Okay, so we have our half cup of ketchup, and then I'm going to put a half cup of Coke in here. We got some onion here. It's half of an onion. Dump that in there. It wasn't a very big onion. The juice of half of a lemon, so I need to cut this in half. And just squeeze it right in there. All right. Then we're going to add 2 tablespoons of rice vinegar. You can find this in your ethnic food store, usually the Asian section. It's a nice light vinegar, very mild. Then we're going to add 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. Okay. A tablespoon of canola oil. Two teaspoons of paprika. I'm just going to use regular paprika, but if you have like a sweet paprika, that would be good too. 2. And then salt and pepper. This sauce is wonderful once it is allowed to kind of all meld together. It's really good on chicken. You can make it with chicken breast. And then actually what the Iowa Girl Eats does is she makes it on chicken and then she uses this and mixes it with Greek yogurt and makes a salad dressing out of it. It's very good that way. All right, and we'll give this one a little stir. Then we'll want to allow these to simmer on fairly low, medium low, for about 20 minutes. You don't want them to get too hot because then they kind of bubble over and they can burn, especially because we've got Coke and sugar in them. So leave those about right there. Okay, now I will go into my PowerPoint presentation and show you guys kind of where ribs come from and the difference between spare ribs and back ribs. Okay, let me screen share it with you guys. All right, so, whoops, let me go up. So a lot of these pictures I found, but some of the pictures that I'm going to be showing you, you can find at ChicoLockerSausage.com, and there is actually a really, really good diagram and kind of breakdown of how a pig is cut up. So if you're interested in that, I would check out ChicoLockerSausage.com. Okay. All right, so I found this cut chart. If you guys have watched me before, I have done this with the beef, and this is a really great diagram of basically how you cut up a hog. Hogs are super, super easy to cut up. It's not as intense as a beef. So basically you're going to be separating the ham out, and it's basically cut just like this, kind of at a diagonal right here. You're going to break the loin and the belly from the shoulder and then this kind of neck piece as well. And it's fairly straightforward, simple, easy. There's not any sort of cutting in between fifth and sixth rib type of deal like it is on the beef. So here's kind of another diagram showing you how you do it. We actually leave the leg on when we break this part. So the first cut we're going to cut is we're going to break the leg from the rest of the part. Then we're going to break the shoulder off, cut this hock off, and then separate the loin and the belly. You certainly could, and I'll show you guys later on, leave these two pieces attached and take off the pieces individually, but we break it down, the loin and the belly. So when we're talking about the ribs, AmazingRibs.com, I found this on there, and this is an absolutely fantastic diagram showing you where cuts come from on a hog. So if we look down here at this lower left-hand corner, this is going to give us a good look. So we're looking down basically the middle, like a middle cut of a hog. On top here, you're going to have your loins. So you're going to have your loins all coming right here. And then your tenderloins are going to run here on the inside, which are going to be kind of like your fillets. This is going to be the backbones or the vertebrae of the hog, and then this is going to be the bones that go down its sides, so basically the rib bones. So this little light pink here is going to be your baby backs, which are actually going to sit on the pork chops. And then the longer piece are going to be your spare ribs, which that's actually where the bacon is going to sit and come down. And it gives you kind of a good idea or a good diagram over here as well. So here's what it looks like in practice. The shoulder, you can see on the left-hand side, the shoulder with the hock right there. So they've cut the ham off, and now they have the shoulder and the loin and the belly all attached, and he's going to put it on the saw, and he's going to cut off that one piece. So we have the shoulder and the hock right here. Then he's going to take the loin and the belly, and he's going to cut it basically down the center here. So you're going to have this big, long, nice pork loin, and then you're also going to have your belly here. So then from there, if this person wanted their baby back, didn't want their baby back ribs, if you want on a hog, if you're going to get a whole carcass hog, you can't get bone-in pork chops and baby back ribs. Either you'll get boneless pork chops or you'll get your ribs. Well, you'll get boneless pork chops and your ribs, or you'll get bone-in pork chops, because the ribs that are on your pork chops are your baby back ribs. So here, this customer whose hog it is that we were cutting up, they wanted their baby back ribs. So he's taking off he took off the tenderloin, which sits right here. And then he's taking his knife and he's going to peel this loin off, so you have a boneless loin. And then here you're left with the boneless loin, and then right here you have these baby back ribs. You can see right here the vertebrae is still attached right here. He's actually, we'll see in the next picture, he's going to take those off. So here he's cutting them in half, and then he's trimming off that vertebrae and leaving just the baby back ribs. So here are those baby back ribs, and here's your tenderloin, and here's your boneless pork loin. Now the spare ribs are going to be lower down. They're going to be attached onto the belly. So you can see in that left-hand picture that the spare ribs are sitting right there on that belly, and he's going to take his knife and he's going to take those ribs and peel them right off. Then you're left with just your pork belly. It can be cured, it can be smoked, it can be sliced fresh for fresh side is what it's called. So here's another angle of him taking off these spare ribs right here, and then basically what he's doing is he's taking his knife and cutting in between the rib tips here and so that it makes it easier. You can see in this bottom picture for when you cook them, you can cut them up. So these would be just a regular spare rib. If you're going to buy spare ribs in the store, that's usually how they will come. There's also something known as a St. Louis style rib, and I will go into what that is as well. So here's kind of another way that you can do it. So this is a little bit smaller of a hog. Here we've got our pork chops, we've got our baby back ribs, and then we've got our belly and our spare ribs here as well. So they have it as one whole piece, and he's actually going to take these ribs off as one whole piece and then cut them. So he's boning out this entire piece, and then he's made a cut in half. So here's the pork loin, boneless pork loin, and here is the bacon or the pork belly. Now then he's got that whole piece, so your spare ribs are up here. Then he's got the baby backs right here. He's taking off the piece of that vertebrae backbone here. He'll cut them in half, and then there's your spare ribs and your back ribs. So St. Louis style ribs are basically when we take spare ribs. So St. Louis style ribs are always going to be spare ribs, and we're going to basically make them a perfect square, and basically it's the center cuts of the ribs. So here he took off these rib tips, so you have just this nice square piece. A lot of times also for St. Louis ribs, they will take off this flap as well. So here's another diagram of it. Here's the center of the ribs, here's the rib tips, and kind of if there's a weird end piece. This one is a really great picture. It shows you basically you make a cut along the top right here and cut this off, so you have a nice square rectangular piece. And then a lot of times they chop up these rib pieces as well, and they will cook them and sell them. Here's another good diagram. This one is from easybarbecuerecipes.com. So here it's showing you, here's your spare ribs untrimmed. Basically you're going to have, on most spare ribs, you're going to have a piece of the sternum up here. You're going to have your ribs. They call this the point, and then these are the rib tips. So basically they just made a cut right along here and took off these rib tips. And those are St. Louis cut ribs. So like I said previous, I am not a scientist when it comes to cooking ribs. As long as I can get them tender and they taste good and they come off the bone, I am a happy girl. A lot of people get really crazy when it comes to cooking ribs and the science behind cooking ribs, and that is wonderful. There's a bunch of barbecue competitions and other things that people are competing in. So my tips for ribs are I either marinate them or I pre-cook them, or if I'm not going to pre-cook them, then I slow cook them. Like I said, you can boil them. I have boiled them before, or you can do a combination of boil baking. I know a lot of people say that boiling denatures the proteins in there, and then you also are leaching out your flavor. I haven't found that to be true for me. Whether or not there's that science behind it, I still get great pre-boiled ribs and then grill them or bake them. You can also bake them low at 275 for about a half hour usually. Make sure you season your ribs well. So if you're going to use a dry rub and then put them on and cook them, slow cook them, make sure you season them really well. Don't be stingy on the seasoning. And then if you're going to grill them, make sure you grill them with indirect heat. So don't stick them right in the hot part of the fire. Ribs like to be kind of put off to the side on your cooler part of your grill. And then sauce throughout. So when you're going to be adding sauce right off the bat on top of your dry rub, put sauce on there in the beginning, then put sauce on there in the middle, then put sauce on the end, because as that sauce, a lot of them are sugar-based, kind of caramelize, and they're going to add juice, keep that juice in those ribs. They're going to cook at different layers, so you're going to have multiple layers of flavor when you're saucing throughout. So those would be my simple tips for ribs. Like I said, I know a lot of people get really scientific when it comes to ribs, and you don't have to. All right, so our sauces are boiling pretty good here. The mango one smells delicious, and our Coke one smells just as good. All right, turn them down. This mango one, like I said, I'm going to stick an immersion blender in it, so I will get that out. If you have not ever used an immersion blender, I highly recommend you buy one. I love this thing. I use it all the time for stuff. So this is what it looks like. It's kind of like a little wand, and it's got a knife that goes around. And this works great for if you have something that is hot that you need to blend up, rather than blending it in a blender and having that hot stuff in your blender. You can just do it right in the pan. So I've done this with soups. It also makes smoothies really nicely. So I'll go ahead and just buzz this up. You just have to be careful. It has those little slots so that stuff can go in and out. And you just want to make sure that you keep that under the whatever you're blending up, because if you bring it above, then it'll shoot out at you. And when you blend this up, it kind of makes a really pretty color, because that yellow mango takes that mahogany out of it. All right. So here I'll spoon a little bit of these onto a plate so you can see what they look like. So here we've got our mango barbecue sauce. And then here we've got our cola one as well. So now we will get our ribs out. Put these up here. And basically we're just going to mop these over. So you guys can see nicely. So see, these ribs are already starting to come off the bone. That's a good sign when it comes to ribs. And I'm actually going to separate these. Because they'll juice quite a bit, and I don't want the flavors to be mixing together. So basically, I cut these in half. So you can leave them as a whole piece if you want, but they're just easier to deal with when they're halves. And we're basically just going to be dumping this over. This is our cola sauce. You can certainly do these. I've done them in a Pyrex, and then you can kind of, as they leach out some juice, you can kind of take that juice and reuse it. I do both sides just because I like that flavor on both sides. And basically you're just going to continue to do this. Check on them. Make sure that your heat is not too high, and then you're just going to spoon this over them again. And as, like I said, as this cooks, it's going to kind of caramelize, and then when you add more over the top, it's just going to add a different layer of flavor. The recipe usually does about 1 rack of ribs, so if you're using more, you're going to need to double or triple or whatever have you the recipe. You can also, if you have some left over of this sauce, you can also use it for like a dipping sauce with your ribs. I actually have kept this jar, like make extra and then jar it up and use it just as a barbecue sauce whenever I need a barbecue sauce. So I'm going to put these in, and then we'll do the mango ribs. They're probably only really going to need to cook for about a half hour or so. You can certainly cook them at a lower temperature for closer to an hour or an hour and a half. But since they're already basically cooked all the way through, we're just going to want to get that sauce on there and just let them continue to cook and get really tender. So here's our mango. I love this mango barbecue sauce. It is seriously delicious. Kind of smoky, sweet. And it's wonderful on chicken as well. All right. You could throw these on the grill. Like I said, it's a rainy day here today, so it's not the most ideal grilling, so I'm actually just going to bake them. But you can throw them on the grill like this and grill them to finish them off. That is an option. Or let them smoke for a little bit and then grill them. If you have something like a Traeger where you can do that. All right. These are going to go back in, and they're just going to finish off, and I'll keep adding sauce to them, like I said, for probably about a half hour. If they need to go for 45 minutes, then they'll go for 45 minutes. All right, that is it for me today. I hope you guys enjoyed the ribs and maybe learned a thing or two about where ribs come from. Next week, hopefully, I will do my mother-in-law's amazing waffle cookies. I know I keep saying that I'm going to do that, and I have yet to do it, but I have these ribs in the fridge, and my husband loves ribs, so I needed to get them cooked up. So I hope you will join me again next week, and I hope that everybody has a fantastic Saturday and a good next week. I will be posting these recipes on my site, prairiecalifornian.com, on Tuesday. Bye!